He was a boy who seemed small in every way, yet carried a spark inside him that no one could see at first glance. His life was far from easy. He lived in a tiny, crowded room above the kitchen where his mother worked. She was a maid in a large, luxurious house, a place that gleamed with wealth but held little warmth. Every day, she scrubbed floors, washed dishes, and polished silver, all while making sure her son never went to bed hungry. The boy often watched her hands, calloused and red from work, and wondered how anyone could survive such a life and still smile. She did it for him, she said, because she loved him more than anything in the world. Despite their hardships, the boy had a mind that was extraordinary. He loved to think, to plan, and to play games that made him feel clever. The game he loved most was chess. It had started one rainy afternoon when his mother found an old, dusty chessboard at a second-hand shop. The pieces were uneven, some chipped, some stained with what looked like old tea, but to the boy it was magical. He learned the moves by watching online videos, reading books, and practicing quietly in his room. When other children played soccer or ran in the streets, he would sit cross-legged on the floor, moving tiny wooden knights and bishops with care, imagining battles that only existed in his mind. The boy's talent grew quickly. He could see patterns in the game that surprised even adults who had been playing for years. Friends and neighbors started noticing that he was different. He didn't just move pieces. He thought ahead, imagining every possible outcome, predicting the opponent's next move like he could see into the future. His mother was proud, but she worried too. How could someone so talented have any chance in the real world when they were born with nothing? Life in the house where his mother worked was a world apart from his own. It was filled with shining floors, heavy curtains, and people who spoke in soft, commanding voices. The boy had only glimpsed it from a distance, through the kitchen door while dusting and polishing. He noticed the way the people there moved, confident and sure of themselves. The way they carried money like it was weightless. And he wondered if anyone there knew the value of a simple game, or a kind word. One day an event changed everything. The household was hosting a gathering. The boy had never been allowed in such rooms before, but that afternoon he followed his mother, carrying a tray of refreshments. The guests were dressed in suits and expensive dresses, their laughter ringing in the air like music. He tried to stay invisible, to just do his work and leave, but one man noticed him. He was tall, imposing, and carried an air of authority that made the boy's heart beat faster. This man was a billionaire, known for his sharp mind and his love of challenges. He looked at the boy with curiosity, not unkindly, but with a sense of amusement. "You there?" the man said, his voice calm but firm. "Do you play games?" The boy froze. He wasn't used to being addressed by someone so important, someone whose name was whispered with respect by everyone around. I like chess," he said softly, his voice almost swallowed by the grandeur of the room. The billionaire's eyes lit up. "Chess, you say? Well, let's see how clever you are." The boy's heart raced. He had never played against anyone like this before. The man didn't just play chess. He played to win, and he had a reputation for being unbeatable. But the boy didn't back down. He nodded, and the billionaire gestured to a small table in the corner. As they sat down, a crowd began to form. The guests were curious, some amused, some skeptical. They whispered to each other, wondering how a boy from a maid's family could even stand a chance. The boy ignored them. He focused on the board, his mind racing, imagining every move, every trap, every clever tactic he had ever learned. The first few moves were cautious. The billionaire smiled slightly, a hint of amusement in his eyes. He made moves that were aggressive, testing the boy, pushing him to react quickly. But the boy was ready. He had spent hours practicing in secret, anticipating strategies just like this. With each move, he gained confidence, his small hands moving pieces with precision. People started to notice. Whispers turned into murmurs of surprise. The boy's strategies were unconventional, unpredictable. He wasn't just playing. He was thinking 3 steps ahead, sometimes 5, always calculating, always planning. The billionaire leaned back slightly, his face showing the first sign of real interest. He had played against champions, against world-class players, but this boy was different. There was a freshness in his mind, a clarity that couldn't be taught or bought. The game went on for hours. Time seemed to slow down. The boy's mother watched nervously from the edge of the room, her hands clenched. She had always known her son was special, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. She could see the concentration etched into his young face, the way he would pause for a moment, close his eyes, and then make a move that stunned everyone. The billionaire, for the first time in a long time, felt challenged. His usual confidence wavered slightly as the boy countered every tactic, blocked every trap, and even set a few of his own. There was a moment when a hush fell over the room. The boy made a move so unexpected, so clever, that it shifted the balance of the game entirely. The adults exchanged glances, realizing that this was no ordinary child. "You have talent," the billionaire said finally, breaking the silence. His tone was a mix of respect and genuine surprise. Most adults can't see moves like that. "Where did you learn?" The boy looked up, his eyes meeting the man's eye. "I just practice," he said honestly. "A lot." The billionaire smiled, leaning back, but there was a new spark in his expression. He wasn't just seeing a child anymore. He was seeing potential, a mind that could rival anyone, regardless of age or background. He realized that talent sometimes hides in the most unlikely places. And he felt a rare excitement, the thrill of discovering something truly extraordinary. After the game ended, the boy hadn't won entirely, nor had he lost. It was a draw, but it didn't matter. The billionaire stood up, clapping his hands lightly. "Well done," he said, nodding at the boy. "You have a rare gift. Most people will never know what you just did here, but I do." The boy felt a mix of pride and disbelief. He had always believed in his abilities, but hearing it from someone so powerful made it real. People around them murmured, some still in disbelief, some with admiration. The boy's mother wiped tears from her eyes quietly, overwhelmed with a mix of relief and joy. That evening, the billionaire called the boy aside. He wanted to talk privately, away from the crowd. He asked questions about his life, his studies, his dreams. He listened as the boy spoke about wanting to learn, to grow, and to make a life that wasn't limited by circumstances. The billionaire saw a determination in the boy that was rare, something money alone could not buy. By the time the night ended, something had shifted. The boy had entered a world he had only glimpsed from afar, a world of opportunities and possibilities. He didn't know what the future held, but he felt hope in a way he never had before. The billionaire, too, felt a sense of responsibility and excitement. He knew that talent like this couldn't be ignored, that it deserved recognition and guidance. As they said goodbye, the boy's mother held his hand tightly. "Remember," she whispered, "no matter what happens, never forget where you come from. Your heart is what makes you strong, not just your mind." The boy nodded, understanding more than she realized. That night, as he lay in his small bed, he thought about the game, about the moves, about the man who had noticed him. He didn't dream of wealth or fame. He dreamed of chess, of learning, of proving that a boy from nowhere could stand tall against the world. And so, the story began not with victory, not with money, but with a single moment, a single game, and a recognition that genius can appear anywhere, even in the quietest corners, even in the humblest lives. From that day forward, nothing was ever the same. The boy's life had taken a turn not because of luck, but because talent, hard work, courage had met the eyes of someone who could open doors. And in the boy's heart, a small flame of determination burned brighter than ever, promising that the world would soon see what he was truly capable of. The days after that first chess match felt like a blur to the boy. Everything seemed the same at home, the tiny room, the old furniture, the faint smell of cleaning soap, but he knew something inside him had changed. He carried a new confidence, a sense that the world might not be entirely closed off to him. And yet he also felt nervous. Opportunities could be exciting, but they could be frightening too. He had never been in a place where people of wealth and power paid attention to him, where someone like the billionaire saw his potential and took it seriously. His mother noticed the change first. She saw him spending hours with his chessboard, not just practicing, but thinking about strategies, studying openings and endings he hadn't known before. She saw him sketching moves on scraps of paper, imagining himself in games that were far beyond what she had ever known. She wanted to encourage him, but she also worried. Could a boy from their life survive in a world so different from theirs? Could talent alone protect him from disappointment? One morning, a letter arrived. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, and stamped with the logo of the Billionaire's company. The boy opened it with trembling hands. Inside was an invitation and an opportunity to join a small chess program sponsored by the Billionaire. It wasn't just a class. It was a chance to learn from experts, to compete against players far stronger than him, and to attend special events where his skills could be noticed by the right people. The words felt unreal. He had dreamed of such opportunities, but he had never dared to imagine they could actually happen. His mother hugged him tightly when she saw his face light up. "This is your chance," she whispered. "But remember, it will not be easy. You must work harder than ever." The boy nodded, feeling both excitement and fear. The thought of leaving the small comfort of their home, stepping into a world filled with strangers and expectations, made his stomach twist. But he also knew he could not stay small forever. His heart was restless, craving growth, craving challenge. The first day at the program was overwhelming. The room was filled with children and teenagers who had already been playing chess for years, some of them traveling from other cities just to join. They were polite but competitive, each of them with a hunger that the boy could feel. The instructors were patient but firm, pushing each child to think faster, to anticipate more, to see the game as a series of possibilities rather than just pieces on a board. For the first time, the boy realized that talent alone was not enough. Discipline, patience, and a willingness to fail and learn were just as important. The boy struggled at first. He made mistakes, miscalculated moves, and sometimes felt completely outclassed. He had never faced players who thought in ways so fast and complex, but he refused to give up. Every evening he would return home, tired and discouraged, yet determined. He would replay the games in his mind, analyzing every move, every mistake, imagining what he could do differently next time. His mother watched him, her heart swelling with pride and worry at the same time. She understood that the path ahead would be hard, but she also knew her son had a mind that could not be confined. Weeks passed and the boy began to improve. Slowly, his confidence grew. He started winning small games, then medium games, then eventually matches against players who had once seemed untouchable. The instructors began to notice him, pressed by his ability to remain calm under pressure, to see several steps ahead and to adapt when a strategy failed. The boy's unique way of thinking, the way he saw the board as a story rather than just pieces, gave him an advantage. But success did not come without challenges. Some of the other children were competitive in ways that made the boy uneasy. They teased him about his background, whispering about the fact that he came from a Maid's family, that he didn't have the privileges they had. There were moments when he felt invisible, overlooked or underestimated. It stung, but he learned to turn the pain into fuel. He focused not on what others thought, but on what he could control, his mind, his preparation, his dedication. One afternoon, a major announcement shook the program. There would be a special tournament. The winner would be invited to play in a private match against the billionaire himself, the same man who had first noticed him. The news spread quickly, and excitement buzzed through the room. But for the boy, it was a mix of exhilaration and fear. He remembered that first match, the way he had felt under the billionaire's gaze. And now he would face him again, but this time it was official, expected. And witnessed by many, the boy's friends encouraged him, though he had few. "You can do it," one said. "You've beaten everyone else. You'll beat him too." Another smiled nervously, saying, "Just remember, it's not about winning. Show what you know." The boy could not ignore the pressure. He felt it pressing down on him like a heavy weight. And yet he also felt a strange excitement, the kind that comes before a storm, when something important is about to happen, and there is no turning back. Preparation became his life. He studied openings, mid-game strategies, in-games, and unusual moves that no one else expected. He practiced for hours, sometimes alone in a small corner, sometimes with the help of his instructors. He visualized the billionaire's moves, imagining the man's thought process, the way he would test him, the traps he might set. The boy worked not just to play, but to think faster, sharper, and with deeper understanding. His mother watched, quietly offering encouragement, bringing him meals, and making sure he rested. She understood that the battle ahead was not just about chess. It was about proving that talent could rise above circumstance. Finally, the day arrived. The tournament was held in a grand hall, filled with spectators, participants, and cameras. The boy's hand shook slightly as he entered. The other players whispered, some looking at him with doubt, some with curiosity. The boy walked to his assigned table, his mind racing with all he had learned. He glanced at the chessboard, set up perfectly, and took a deep breath. This was his moment, round after round. The boy played with precision. He surprised opponents with unexpected strategies, outmaneuvered those who seemed invincible, and remained calm under pressure. Each victory was a small step, but it built his confidence. He remembered his mother's words, the hours of practice, the sacrifices they had made, and he felt a quiet determination rising inside him. He was not just playing for himself. He was playing for a future he had always imagined but never thought possible. The final round came, and the announcement echoed through the hall. The winner would face the billionaire. The boy's stomach twisted. This was the moment he had both dreamed of and feared. He thought back to that first day, to the small room where he had first learned the game, to the dusty chessboard that had started it all. He realized that everything had led to this moment. He had worked hard, learned, grown, and now the world would see what he could do. The match began in a private room, quiet except for the soft ticking of a clock and the occasional move on the board. The billionaire studied him carefully, as if measuring not just skill but character. The boy felt a wave of nerves, but also a strange calm. He had prepared for this. He had imagined it 1,000 times, and now it was real. Each move was deliberate, each counter calculated, each choice made with care. The billionaire was a formidable opponent. He moved pieces with precision, set traps with experience, and tested the boy's patience. But the boy was ready. He anticipated. He blocked. He countered. He thought, not like a child or like someone poor, but like a mind that saw possibilities beyond class, beyond expectation, beyond fear. Every time the billionaire smiled or raised an eyebrow, the boy remained focused, refusing to be distracted. Hours passed. The game became a silent battle of minds, a duel of strategy and insight. The boy found himself in positions he had never faced before, yet he remained calm. He remembered his lessons, his mistakes, and his victories. He drew on every bit of knowledge he had gained, every strategy he had practiced. The room was quiet, the tension almost tangible. Even the billionaire seemed impressed, leaning forward occasionally, studying the boy with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the boy made a move that stunned the billionaire. It was clever, unexpected, and brilliant. The billionaire paused, his eyes widening slightly. A small smile appeared on his face, not of mockery, but of admiration. He realized that this boy, humble, hardworking, and from a life of struggle, had grown into a player who could challenge even the most experienced minds. The match ended not with a clear victory for either, but with a respect that transcended rank, wealth, or age. The billionaire extended his hand, and the boy shook it, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. The moment was more than a game. It was recognition. The boy had proven that intelligence, dedication, and courage were not limited by class or circumstance. As he left the room, the boy's mother was waiting. She embraced him tightly, tears running down her face. "You did it," she whispered. "I always knew you could." The boy smiled, exhausted but happy. He knew the journey had only begun, that challenges would come, but for the first time, he truly believed in himself. He had faced someone the world considered untouchable, and he had shown that talent and heart could rise above everything. And so, a new chapter of his life opened, filled with hope, opportunity, and the promise that a boy from humble beginnings could stand on equal ground with the most powerful. Simply by believing in himself and never giving up, the days that followed the private match were filled with a mix of excitement, pressure, and new responsibilities for the boy. Word had spread quietly, but quickly, he was not just a talented child from a humble background. He was someone the billionaire had noticed. Invitations to tournaments, training programs, and special coaching sessions began arriving at his doorstep. At first, the boy was overwhelmed. He had never imagined such a life, where doors opened with a single knock, where people took an interest in him simply for his mind. His mother watched the changes with both pride and concern. She had always believed in him, had always known he was special, but she worried about the world around him. People could be cruel, jealous, or dismissive. She wanted him to succeed, but she also wanted him to remain grounded, to remember where he had come from, to understand that kindness and humility mattered as much as talent. She reminded him gently every day, "Your mind is sharp, but your heart must be sharper. Never forget who you are." The boy listened. He understood her words better than she realized. He had seen people who judged him at first glance, people who assumed he was inferior because of his background. He knew the world could be unkind, but he also knew that intelligence, practice, and courage could take him far if he stayed focused. He decided to carry his mother's lessons in his heart while stepping into this new world. His first major tournament after the private match was held in a city far from home. It was bigger, grander, and filled with players he had never met. Some had competed internationally. Some had been playing since they could walk. The boy felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. The sheer scale of the event was intimidating, the bright lights, cheering crowds, the sense of importance in every corner. But he reminded himself of the private match. If he could face the billionaire and hold his own, he could face this too. The first rounds were challenging. The boy faced opponents who were confident, skilled, and sometimes intimidating. A few underestimated him when they saw a boy from a modest background sitting at the board. "This will be easy," one whispered, but the boy paid them no attention. He had learned that distraction could destroy focus. Each move was deliberate, each strategy calculated. He played with patience, thinking not only about immediate gains, but long-term positioning, about possibilities 3 or 4 moves ahead. Slowly, he began to rise through the rounds. Victories were hard-earned. Sometimes he would lose, sometimes he would draw, but each game was a lesson. He learned about timing, psychology, and the importance of reading not just the board, but the opponent. The boy discovered that chess was more than a game. It was a test of the mind and spirit. The stronger he grew, the more he realized how much more there was to learn. Not everyone was happy about his progress. Some of the wealthier, more privileged players began to resent him. They whispered behind his back, mocking his background, questioning why someone from his life deserved to be there. At first, the boy felt a twinge of hurt, but he refused to let it shake him. Instead, he used their doubt as motivation. He reminded himself that their privilege did not determine skill. His mind, his patience, and his courage were his weapons. He would use them wisely. Among the players, he also found allies. There were a few who admired his talent, who respected the way he thought and played. They offered advice, shared strategies, and encouraged him when he struggled. These friendships were small, but meaningful. The boy realized that even in a competitive world, kindness and cooperation could make a difference. He began to understand that success was not only about defeating others, but also about learning from them, growing with them, and helping each other along the way. The tournament reached its final stage, and the boy found himself facing a player who was considered one of the strongest in the region. The opponent was skilled, confident, and intimidating, with a reputation for rarely losing. The boy felt the familiar rush of nerves, but he also felt calm. He had come this far. He had learned so much, and he trusted in his preparation. As the game began, the audience watched silently, sensing a battle of minds that would be remembered. The match was intense. Every move mattered. The opponent was aggressive, trying to unsettle the boy with tricky openings and bold attacks. But the boy anticipated, calculated, and defended with precision. His style was different, unconventional in some ways, but effective. He moved with patience, setting small traps, testing the opponent's reactions, waiting for the right moment to strike. The crowd leaned forward, sensing that this was not an ordinary game. Hours passed. The boy's eyes grew tired, his mind exhausted from constant calculation, yet he refused to give up. He remembered his mother's words about heart and focus. He remembered the private match with the billionaire, the small victories that had led him here. Slowly, the balance of power shifted. The opponent grew frustrated, making small mistakes. While the boy remained steady, finally the game reached a critical point. With a move that was bold yet precise, the boy turned the board in his favor. The opponent's face showed surprise and respect. The audience erupted in applause. The boy had won not only because of skill, but because of patience, focus, and determination. He felt a surge of pride, but he also felt humility. He knew the journey was far from over. Victory was sweet, but it was also a reminder of how much more there was to achieve. After the tournament, the boy received praise and recognition. The billionaire who had been following his progress sent a message of encouragement, praising the boy's growth and resilience. The boy felt a sense of validation, but he also understood that recognition alone was not enough. Talent required constant care, constant learning, and constant humility. Back at home, life returned to a quiet rhythm, but the boy was changed. He continued his studies, his chess practice, and his time with his mother. He knew that the world outside was full of both opportunity and challenge, and he was determined to navigate it with intelligence, courage, and kindness. He also began to understand the responsibility that came with talent. Others looked up to him, expected things from him, and sometimes tried to bring him down. He realized that staying true to himself, working hard, and helping others along the way was just as important as winning games. In the weeks that followed, the boy began to receive invitations to mentor younger players, to share his knowledge and experience. He discovered a joy in teaching, in helping others learn strategies and tactics, in encouraging them to believe in themselves. He realized that his journey was not only about personal success, but about inspiring others, about showing that talent and determination could rise above circumstances. The boy also started thinking about the future. He dreamed of competing internationally, of representing his country, and of continuing to grow as a player and a person. He understood that the path ahead would not be easy, that challenges would continue to appear, and that some people would doubt or underestimate him. But he also knew that he had the tools to succeed: his mind, his discipline, his heart, and the unwavering support of his mother. One evening, as he reviewed games from the tournament, he reflected on how far he had come. From a small room above the kitchen, with an old chessboard and dreams too big to voice, he had entered a world of opportunity and challenge. He had faced opponents who seemed unbeatable, learned lessons that could not be taught in books, and discovered strength within himself he had never known. And he realized something important. The journey was not only about proving his talent to others, but about proving it to himself, about growing, learning, and remaining true to who he was. The boy knew that the billionaire's attention was still there, that the opportunities would continue to come, and that his life was changing in ways he could barely imagine. But he also knew that no matter how far he went, no matter how many victories he achieved, the most important things were not wealth, recognition, or fame. They were resilience, integrity, and heart. And so, the boy prepared for the next chapter, ready to face new challenges, to meet new players, and to continue proving that intelligence, dedication, and courage could break through barriers that others thought impossible. He had learned that class, background, and circumstance could not define him. Only his mind, his choices, and his heart could. As the days passed, the boy continued to train, to play, and to grow. He faced setbacks and triumphs, friends and rivals, doubt and admiration. Every experience shaped him. Every game taught him something new. He began to understand that success was not a single moment, but a journey, a series of choices and efforts that built character. skill, and wisdom. By the end of part 3, the boy had not only proven his talent in tournaments, but had started to earn respect in the wider chess community. He had learned to navigate a world of privilege and competition, to handle jealousy and admiration alike, and to stay focused on growth and integrity. His journey was far from over, but he was stronger, wiser, more determined than ever. The story of the poor maid's son was no longer just about a boy playing chess. It was about perseverance, resilience, and the power of talent and heart to rise above circumstance. The world was beginning to notice. But the boy knew the most important recognition came from within, from the knowledge that he had worked hard, remained humble, and stayed true to himself. Life had changed in ways the boy never imagined. He was no longer just a child who practiced chess quietly in a small room above the kitchen. He had begun to step into a larger world, one that demanded more than demanded courage, resilience, and the ability to face challenges that went beyond the chessboard. He had seen success, tasted recognition, and felt the thrill of victory. But he was also beginning to understand that the journey was far from simple. The next big challenge came unexpectedly. A prestigious international tournament had invited him to participate. It was a competition that brought together the strongest young players from all over the world. To the boy, the opportunity was both exciting and terrifying. He had never traveled far from home, never been in a room with so many people who expected him to perform. He had never faced opponents whose skills were polished through years of professional training. Yet, he also knew that this was the moment he had worked for. The moment that could change his life completely. Preparation became intense. Every day was spent studying, analyzing past games, and practicing new strategies. The boy pushed himself harder than ever, sometimes late into the night, imagining the international players' moves, the traps they might set, and the strategies he could use to counter them. His mother supported him in every way, ensuring he ate properly, rested, and stayed healthy. She knew that while talent was important, strength of body and mind would carry him further. Even as he prepared, the boy felt the weight of expectation. People began noticing his progress, and with recognition came scrutiny. Articles and social media posts praised his talent, but also speculated about whether a boy from a modest background could truly compete at the highest levels. Some were supportive, while others were critical, questioning whether he had the experience, resources, or endurance to face international competition. The boy felt pressure, but he refused to let it define him. He reminded himself that skill focus and heart were what mattered most. The journey to the tournament was unlike anything he had experienced. He traveled by plane for the first time, seeing landscapes, cities, and airports that he had only read about. Everything felt strange and new, yet exhilarating. The tournament venue was enormous, filled with lights, cameras, and hundreds of players and spectators. The boy felt small in the midst of it, but he carried a quiet confidence. He had prepared, he had learned, and he was ready to face whatever came his way. The first rounds were intense. He played against players who had trained with elite coaches, who had access to resources he could only dream of, and who carried a confidence born of privilege and experience. Many underestimated him at first, seeing a boy from a modest home and assuming he would be an easy target. But the boy was focused. Every move was deliberate, every calculation precise. He relied on his mind, his preparation, and his instinct. Rather than fear or doubt, some rounds were victories, others were hard lessons. He lost a few games, but he analyzed every mistake carefully, learning faster than anyone expected. He began to notice patterns, to anticipate opponents' strategies, and to adapt quickly. His mind worked like a machine, processing possibilities, predicting outcomes, and finding solutions in moments when others would panic. Slowly, he began to rise through the ranks, earning respect from competitors and instructors alike. But the challenges were not only on the chessboard. The boy soon discovered the harsh side of competition, the envy, the pressure, and the politics. A few players, jealous of his talent and recognition, tried to unsettle him. They whispered rumors, questioned his place in the tournament, and attempted to distract him during matches. It was difficult, especially because the boy was still young, still learning how to navigate a world where not everyone wished him well. Yet, he refused to let negativity control him. He focused on his goals, using their doubts as fuel rather than poison. The biggest challenge arrived in the form of an opponent who was widely considered unbeatable. This player was older, experienced, and had competed internationally for years. When the boy saw him sitting at the board, confident and calm, he felt a wave of nervousness. He knew this match would test everything he had learned, the strategies, the patience, the mental strength he had cultivated. But he also knew that fear could not stop him. He took a deep breath, remembering the first time he had faced the billionaire, and the countless hours of practice that had brought him here. The match began. The opponent was aggressive from the start, setting traps, probing weaknesses, and pushing the boy to react quickly. At first, the boy struggled, miscalculating a move and losing a small advantage. But he quickly recovered, analyzing the board, predicting possible responses, and finding new strategies. The game became a silent battle of minds, with every move carrying weight and consequence. Spectators watched in awe as the boy demonstrated skill, focus, and creativity far beyond his years. Hours passed. The boy felt fatigue creeping in, but he refused to give up. He had learned that endurance was as important as talent. He reminded himself to breathe, to think clearly, and to trust in his preparation. Slowly, he began to turn the game around. The opponent, though experienced, began to show signs of frustration. The boy's unconventional strategies, his patience, and his ability to anticipate moves had created a small but critical advantage. In the final moments of the match, the boy executed a move that left the opponent stunned. It was a combination of strategy, foresight, and intuitions, something that could not be taught or copied. The audience gasped. Even seasoned coaches and players nodded in admiration. The boy had turned the tide through sheer intelligence and calm under pressure. The match ended not only with a win for the boy, but with respect from everyone in the room. He had proven that talent, focus, and courage could surpass experience and expectation. After the match, the boy was approached by several coaches and mentors from around the world. They offered guidance, training opportunities, and even invitations to international competitions. The boy felt both excitement and responsibility. He realized that his journey was becoming bigger than he had imagined. Talent alone had opened doors, but now it was up to him to walk through them with determination, humility, and focus. Despite the success, the boy remained grounded. He wrote letters to his mother, sharing the details of each day, the lessons learned, and the people he had met. She replied with encouragement, reminders to stay humble, and praise for his perseverance. Their bond remained strong, rooted in love, trust, and the knowledge that no matter how far he went, home was where he could rest, reflect, and gather strength. Yet challenges continued to appear. The boy faced scrutiny from media outlets, some praising his skill, others questioning his background. Social media was filled with opinions, debates, and commentary. Some people admired his rise, calling it inspirational, while others dismissed him, suggesting he was lucky or overrated. It was overwhelming, but the boy learned to filter noise from reality. He focused on what mattered: the next game, the next move, the next step in his growth. Through it all, the boy discovered an unexpected truth. Success was not just about winning games. It was about resilience, learning from failure, and growing stronger with each challenge. It was about maintaining integrity when others doubted or criticized, about using talent not only for personal gain, but to inspire and support others. He began mentoring younger players, sharing his knowledge, and encouraging those who were discouraged by their circumstances. In the quiet moments, the boy reflected on how far he had come. From a small room above the kitchen, with an old chessboard too, international tournaments and recognition from the world's best players, his life had changed dramatically. Yet, he also knew that the journey was far from over. New challenges, stronger opponents, and higher expectations awaited him. But he felt ready. He had grown not just as a player, but as a person with patience, humility, and a heart that refused to give up. The billionaire continued to watch his progress, offering advice, support, and opportunities. But he also gave the boy freedom to explore, to make mistakes, and to learn on his own. This trust was empowering. The boy realized that mentorship was as much about guidance as it was about faith in the person being guided. The lessons he received were not only about chess, but about life, character, and the importance of staying true to oneself. As the tournament ended and the boy prepared to return home, he felt a mixture of pride, relief, and anticipation. He had faced one of the greatest challenges of his life, had risen above doubt and criticism, and had proven his skill on a world stage. But he also understood that this was just a chapter, not the end. Greater challenges and opportunities lay ahead, and he was ready to face them with the same determination, focus, and heart that had brought him this far. On the plane home, the boy thought about the journey he had taken. He remembered the dusty chessboard in the tiny room above the kitchen, the long nights of practice, the first match with the billionaire, and the tournaments that had tested him beyond measure. Each step had taught him lessons about patience, resilience, humility, and courage. He realized that success was not a destination, but a journey that required constant effort, reflection, and growth. When he arrived home, his mother hugged him tightly. "You've done more than I ever imagined," she said, tears in her eyes. "But remember, this is only the beginning. Keep your heart strong, your mind sharp, and never forget where you came from." The boy nodded, feeling gratitude, love, and determination. He understood that his journey was far from over, but he was ready for whatever came next. And so, part 4 ends with the boy having faced international competition, learned to handle scrutiny and envy, earned global respect, and grown not only as a chess player, but as a person. He is poised for life-changing opportunities and challenges in the final part of the story. The boy had come a long way. From the tiny room above the kitchen, with the old chessboard and dreams he barely dared to voice, he had entered a world he'd never imagined. He had faced opponents far older, more experienced, and wealthier than him. He had learned the meaning of discipline, patience, resilience, and courage. Yet even after all his victories and recognition, he remained the same boy at heart, one who remembered the small lessons his mother had taught him, and the values that had guided him from the very beginning. The next challenge was unlike any he had faced before. An invitation arrived from an international chess federation. They were hosting a global championship for young players, and the winner would earn not just the title, but a chance to train with some of the greatest players in the world, including the billionaire who had first noticed him. The boy read the letter carefully, feeling a mixture of excitement, fear, and determination. This was more than a tournament hit, was a test of everything he had learned, every skill he had honed, and every lesson he had absorbed. Preparation was intense. The boy spent hours each day analyzing past games, studying advanced strategies, and practicing openings he had never tried before. He memorized patterns, learned new tactics, and visualized every possible move and countermove. His mother watched quietly, offering meals, reminders to rest, and encouragement when frustration threatened to take hold. She had seen how far he had come. She understood that this tournament could change his life forever. The boy also reflected on what this meant for him beyond chess. He realized that every match, every challenge, was a test of character. Winning would be important, but how he played, how he treated others, how he maintained his focus under pressure mattered even more. He remembered the whispers of jealousy and doubt he had faced, the critics who questioned his background, and the people who had underestimated him. All of it had taught him that success was not measured by trophies alone, but by the strength and humility with which he carried himself. When the day of the championship arrived, the boy stepped into the grand hall with quiet determination. The room was massive, filled with players from dozens of countries, cameras, and spectators. The energy was electric, but he focused on the board in front of him. Each game was a challenge, each move a test, and each opponent a new puzzle to solve. The boy felt a familiar rush of nerves, but also a calm determination. He had faced pressure before, and he knew that staying composed was the key to winning. The first rounds were difficult. The boy faced opponents who had trained with professional coaches, had traveled for tournaments, and had competed internationally. Some of them looked at him with surprise or skepticism, seeing a boy from humble beginnings and assuming he would be an easy target. But the boy ignored their whispers. He moved each piece with precision, anticipating strategies, setting traps, and thinking several moves ahead. With each match, his confidence grew. The media began to notice him. Commentators mentioned his background, his rise from a small room above a kitchen, and his remarkable talent. Some framed it as an inspiring story of perseverance, while others questioned whether he could sustain his performance against the strongest players. Social media buzzed with excitement and debate. The boy felt the pressure but learned to focus only on what mattered: the board, his strategy, and the game in front of him. By the middle rounds, the boy had become a favorite among spectators. His unconventional strategies, calm demeanor, and ability to remain focused under pressure impressed everyone. But along with admiration came scrutiny and envy. A few players and coaches tried to distract him, spreading rumors or questioning his abilities. They underestimated him, thinking that a boy from such a modest background could not compete at the highest level. But the boy used their doubt as fuel. He had learned that resilience was as important as skill, and that focus could silence criticism. The final rounds were the most intense. The boy faced players who had won national and regional titles, some with years of experience more than him. Each game was a mental battle, each move a delicate calculation. He remembered his past victories and defeats, the lessons from each match, and the guidance of his mother and mentors. He relied on both instinct and analysis, blending creativity with discipline. The games became a test of endurance, patience, and courage. In one particularly difficult match, the boy faced a player who was aggressive and relentless. The opponent tried every trick, every strategy to unsettle him. The boy initially struggled, losing a small advantage early on. But he remained calm. He recalled the lessons from the Billionaire, the countless hours of practice, and the games he had studied. Slowly, he turned the match around, setting subtle traps, predicting the opponent's responses, and capitalizing on every mistake. The room grew silent as the tension rose, spectators leaning forward in anticipation. The final game of the championship was against a player who had been undefeated in the tournament. The stakes were higher than ever. The boy felt the weight of expectation, but he also felt determination. This was more than a game. It was a culmination of years of effort, sacrifice, and learning. He focused, blocking out noise, pressure, and doubt, and approached the game as he always had. One move at a time, one decision at a time. The match was long and grueling. Both players were evenly matched, each making brilliant moves and countering strategies. Spectators watched in awe as the boy demonstrated skill, creativity, and patience. He felt exhaustion creeping in, but he refused to let it interfere. He reminded himself to breathe, to trust his preparation, and to focus on the possibilities, not the obstacles. Slowly, he gained a slight advantage, but the game was far from over. Finally, after hours of intense play, the boy saw an opportunity. A move that was bold, precise, and unexpected. He made it, and the opponent realized too late that the boy had outmaneuvered him. The room erupted in applause. The boy had won. He had become the champion, not just of the tournament, but of his own journey. He had proven that talent, determination, and heart could overcome obstacles, background, and expectation. Tears filled his eyes as he looked at the audience. He had done more than win a title. He had shown that anyone, no matter where they came from, could achieve greatness through effort and courage. The billionaire, watching from the sidelines, nodded with pride. He had seen the boy's journey from the very beginning. Now the world had seen it too. The boy's mother rushed to the stage, hugging him tightly. "I always knew you could," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You never gave up, and you never forgot who you are." The boy smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. His victory was not just his own. It was a reflection of the love, support, and lessons from his mother, his mentors, and everyone who had believed in him. In the days that followed, the boy received invitations to train with top players around the world, offers to participate in international competitions, and recognition from chess federations everywhere. But more importantly, he began to realize the impact of his journey on others. Young players from humble backgrounds reached out to him, inspired by his story. Parents wrote to thank him for showing their children that hard work and talent could open doors. The boy felt a sense of responsibility to continue learning, to mentor others, and to use his abilities for more than personal success. He also began to understand something deeper about life. Victory was important, but the lessons, resilience, and personal growth were even more valuable. He thought of the long nights of practice, the times he had felt discouraged, the challenges he had overcome, and the moments of quiet reflection with his mother. He realized that the journey itself, the effort, the learning, the courage to face fear, was what had truly shaped him. The billionaire, seeing the boy's growth and character, offered him a special opportunity. He would provide guidance, access to elite coaching, and support for the boy's dreams, but he also emphasized independence. "You have shown talent, but more importantly, you have shown heart," he said. "Use it wisely. Keep learning, keep growing, and never lose sight of who you are." The boy felt honored, understanding that mentorship was not only about knowledge, but also about trust and responsibility. Back at home, life returned to a quieter rhythm. The boy continued to study, practice chess, and spend time with his mother, but he had changed. He carried confidence, resilience, and a sense of purpose. He understood that challenges would continue, that opponents would grow stronger, and that expectations would rise. But he also knew that he had the tools, the discipline, the heart to face them all. The boy's story became an inspiration. People admired him not only for his skill, but for his journey, his courage in the face of adversity, his dedication to learning, and his humility despite success. He became a symbol that talent could appear anywhere, that determination could overcome obstacles, and that greatness was not determined by background, wealth, or status. Years later, the boy continued to rise in the world of chess, participating in international tournaments, mentoring younger players, and inspiring countless others. He remembered the dusty chessboard in the tiny room above the kitchen, the long hours of practice, the first match with the billionaire, and the support of his mother. He knew that each step, each challenge, and each lesson had built him into the person he had become. In the end, the boy had achieved more than titles and recognition. He had learned the meaning of perseverance, humility, courage, and heart. He had proven that talent, when nurtured with dedication and supported by love, could break barriers, change lives, and inspire the world. And he continued forward, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Guided by the lessons of the past and the belief that no dream was too big for those who dared to pursue it with courage and integrity, the poor Maid's son, once small and overlooked, had grown into a young man whose mind, heart, and spirit could stand among the greatest. And in doing so, he had shown the world that genius truly knows no class.